All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Now let's move you straight into our discussion segment for today. The Office of the National Security Advisor on Monday confirmed that Nadeem Anjarwalla, a suspect in the ongoing criminal probe into the activities of Binance in Nigeria, has escaped from lawful custody. The head of strategic communication at the Office of the National Security Advisor, Sakari Mijinyawa, said Mr. Anjarwalla escaped on Friday, 22 March. Confirming the development in a statement, the head strategic communications, Zakari Mijinyawa, said a preliminary investigation showed that Anjarwalla fled Nigeria using a smuggled passport. He noted that efforts were ongoing to arrest the suspect. To have this conversation with us this morning is our guest, Mr. Matthew Oluko. He is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, this issue about the sudden escape of the Binance executive, what's your view on that, first of all?
I think to start with, it's a national embarrassment. It's a national embarrassment because we are looking at a situation where a high-profile case of that nature, though I'm not pronouncing the man guilty, because I understand that in our legal jurisprudence, one is innocent until proven otherwise by a court of competent jurisdiction. But it is understandable that the government, particularly the office of the NSC, should have known the seriousness involved, particularly as the activities that has been alleged for which investigation is ongoing has to do with maybe terrorism financing and all that. I understand that they were made to forward to maybe EFCC. I think it has to do with 100 top transactions with the platform involving Nigerians. So I think it should have been given the seriousness it deserves. I think there was negligence or perhaps dereliction of duty on the part of Nigerians who were saddled with the responsibility of keeping him in custody. It's quite unfortunate.
All right. So when you said it's a national embarrassment, it's quite understandable. But then again, considering the issue about pronouncing one guilty is until when proven otherwise, especially when you look at closely with issues that has to do with one being alleged on a crime, until otherwise proven, the person remains innocent. But then again, let's even look at it from this angle. Why should he be arrested first before investigation commences? Is it supposed to be an arrest first before investigation commences, or the right bodies would have done their due diligence in making sure that all investigations concerning this particular entity called Binance, and of course its executive directors, are already concluded before he is being arrested and then tried by court? Why should it be, first of all, he being arrested and then the commence investigation? Why do we have to take a step backward before we take a step forward?
I don't think the government did anything wrong. But we understand that even the man in question was not in Nigeria.
But he was lured, according to information we gathered.
Pardon?
He was lured.
No, it's not about being lured.
Okay.
I think it is at the instance of suspending activities of Binance in Nigeria that the man flew in. I think there were two that came in. So if you look at the escaping, the manner in which the man escaped from Nigeria, you need to show that the Nigerian government and the Nigerian agency that arrested him, they were right. And don't forget that there were a valid court order that said the man should be in custody for 14 days. So it was during these 14 days that he escaped from custody. But what I'm saying is, I think heads must roll.
First
I
of
think
all,
Mr. President needs to step in and look at who felt his responsibility to keep this man in custody.
we're going to go deeper into this discussion, but first of all, the issue why he was invited, was it to be detained? Was it to be for him to be detained afterwards?
He was not invited. He came and perhaps he wanted to see whether he could resolve differences with the Nigerian government.
And ended up being detained.
Nigerian government, no, there's nothing wrong with detaining anybody.
Against his own will?
It's not about against his will. There was a valid court order. Because, according to government, the information at their disposal, we may not be privy to some level of classified information.
Yeah.
But we understand that the issue of terrorism financing is involved in the investigation. And I think it's a serious offense. Yeah, sorry, it's a serious issue, considering the nature of Nigeria. We cannot forget in a hurry the abduction of school children in Kaduna State. Happily, they have been released. So if there is any midway in terms of information on how terrorism is being financed, and government want to get at it, I think they are in the right direction.
Okay, but then let us look at it from a business point of view, because obviously before now, the banks also have been complicit in some areas, especially looking at where transfers are being made from, especially looking at it from the local banks to pay for ransom cases. Now, why is it that it has now shifted from the local banks to Binance? Hold on a bit. That's where I'm going, because it's going to have some kind of detrimental effect on businesses that have their spread outside the shores of this country. I'm talking about multinationals.
Let's get it right. I don't think government have intention of criminalizing Nigerians who paid ransom. I think what perhaps they want to achieve is, if you are paying someone, the man who is receiving from the other end, they may have his data. And that will help government in getting at whoever is on the other end of the transaction. I'm talking in terms of receiving end. So I don't think the intention of the government is to penalize Nigerians who pay ransom. Because I think the government should, even as there is a law criminalizing ransom paying, but I think the government should understand the precarious situation Nigerians find themselves either they are kidnapped. So I don't think the intention of the government is to witch hunt anybody or to maybe start getting on Nigerians who pay ransom.
So what is the idea behind asking Binance to produce 100 top users of their platform, knowing fully well that Nigerians are heavily invested on trading, especially on that particular platform?
Don't forget that nobody is have indicted Binance. Don't forget that nobody is have investigated Binance.
But they have been alleged.
I'm coming. It is not out of place, because if you come into a country to do business, Nigeria have their own laws. You as a foreign investor, it is incumbent on you to comply with all Nigerians' regulation, policies, and their laws. So I think the reason they requested for those transactions is to ensure whether they actually the activities complied with Nigerian Eastern laws. I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
All right, so let's talk about his escape now. How did it happen that someone who was in the custody of the right authority, I'm talking about the NSA, now discovers that this person is no longer within their custody? How did it happen?
And that's why I say heads must rule. Because whether I would like it or not, though the office of NSA have explained that some persons have been arrested and investigation is ongoing, but let us know, because we understand that from the information from the government that he escaped Nigeria with a smuggled passport. So let the investigation be important to ascertain who did what. How did he get the passport he used in escaping Nigeria? I understand that he have a dual citizenship, or rather passport of Kenya and Britain. And I think Nigeria have a extradition treaty with Britain. But I doubt if we have any treaty of such with Kenya. But even at that, if you want to extradite a fugitive, this is not a Nigerian, and you need to argue in their own court to justify the reason you are bringing him. So it's another thing to see whether a British court will want to hand over their citizens to Nigeria for prosecution, irrespective of the justification behind Nigerians' intention.
Okay, so before we talk about what means he used in fleeing out of this country, especially looking at it from a smuggled passport that has been alleged, let's look at it from the aspect of the prison yard. How did he leave that particular spot before taking off? And which route did he actually go through? Is it through the border? Did he go through the air? How did he go away from this prison yard that no one got to know?
It is not clear whether he was in DSS facility, police facility.
But he was actually detained.
Yes, but there is no verified report about what I read, that he was kept in a guest house. It's not verified. I cannot totally rely on it. And even if that was the case, I don't think it's out of place. What was lacking is the ability of the people who were in charge to keep their eyes on the ball. So for me, I think such place where he was detained needed to have some closed circuit television. I'm talking about CCTV.
Yes. So
when things like this happen, you can fall back and get the footage of what actually transpired. Even while the man was in detention, was in custody, all the arrangement proceeding before he escaped, if there's camera coverage, I think it would have exposed a whole lot of activities that led to his escape.
But let's even assume that we don't have such closed circuit cameras in such facility. Do you think that it is out of place not to in any way include the prison warders in this case, especially when it comes to investigation as regards his escape?
It's not clear whether he was kept in custody of prison warders. It's not clear. The government, maybe for reasons, security reasons, they may not want to divulge some information to the public. But to the much we understand, some persons were in charge of that custody. And the government have said they are already in detention. But what we are demanding is that let the persons who failed their responsibility to keep him in custody be prosecuted. Let head rule.
Do you think it is transparent and, looking at it from accountability on the part of the government to have held this information back from the public after days of confirming his escape, especially looking at it from those who might have been saddled with the responsibility of keeping these guys in their custody?
If you jeopardize the investigation, I don't think it's good for you to divulge it to the public. Of what purpose will it serve in the public domain? I don't think that's the issue. I think what is the major problem is let us know whether there was compromise. And if there's compromise, I think our laws will have ways of dealing with such.
Do you think this will not be a case of talking about it for a while in the media and then they sweep the case under the carpet and we'll move on?
That is why we are harping on it, so that the government will do the needful.
Okay, now let's look at how we can be able to secure his release. The Nigerian government has given us information that the Interpol and other stakeholders will be engaged in making sure that he is rearrested. How possible could this be? Looking at it from our other international laws that might be protecting this particular person.
I think rearresting him is going to be a Herculean task.
You think so?
Yes, it's going to be a Herculean task because for such person, I think he should know the right thing to do. I wouldn't say the right thing anyway. He will know the best thing for him, the best thing to do to escape arrest. Because we are looking at somebody of that category that would have known relationship between Nigeria and some countries. He may even decide not to stay in Britain since he understands that Nigeria have existing extradition treaty with Britain. He may decide to go to a country that has some level of diplomatic row with Nigeria. By so doing,
they frustrate every process.
The possibility of even extraditing him would not be there. So it's a very serious, terrible situation. It's unlikely that, unfortunately, it's unlikely that he will be rearrested.
All right, so let's look at security issues generally besieging us as a country. We just heard about the governor crying out, especially when he went to visit the president, that the state is totally porous when it comes to security issues. Now, what do you think needs to be done?
Which are the states?
The Plateau State and, of course, Kaduna, because we've just heard about stories emanating from that particular region. Now, and of course, Benue, not to also leave that out. But then, let's look at it from a holistic point of view. Do you think it is appropriate at this time to tag the bandits as a terror group? Do you think it's appropriate, or do you think it's coming rather too late?
I think even under Muhammadu Buhari, some bandit organizations, or how do I call them, were already designated as terrorist organizations.
Which of the organizations? Which of the?
I think Ansaru is one of them.
Okay.
But the point I'm trying to make in essence is this.
How about Boko Haram?
No, Boko Haram had long been designated as a terrorist organization.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to make is this. If you see the activity of an organization, you can clearly know whether what they do pretend terrorist in nature. So it's not about, there's every justification to designate most of these bandit organizations are terror groups. You cannot want to explain. I've seen some videos that is making the round where it's better imagined than explained. You see students being subjected to trauma of gunshots just for no offense they commit. It's not as if they committed any offense. So for me, the bandits, call them bandits, call them whatever name they go by, call them non-state actors, as long as the activities are had the semblance of terrorism. I don't think the government should waste time in declaring them as terrorist organizations.
Before now, we heard about U.S. support, especially looking at it from the immediate past administration, of helping Nigerians curb insecurity, especially from the Northeast. And we saw the body language of the president, the previous past president, of not pronouncing some of these guys, the bandit terrorists or your terrorist group. Why do you think it took us this long for us to see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu coming out now to say that these guys at this point should be tagged as a terrorist group?
I don't know what you mean by taking too long, because even the former administration of Muhammadu Buhari food dragged.
I'm saying this because it didn't take them too long to prescribe IPOP, a terror group, right? So why is it taking this long for a known group going about in brigandry to be called a terror group, knowing the level of havoc and destruction they've had both on human life and on business?
I do not speak for Muhammadu Buhari. Maybe you'll find a way of getting him to, maybe he's one of his handlers to address that. I don't know the reason they tarried so long in doing the needful. Okay. But I will agree with you that they didn't do it on time.
Okay, now that Bola Tinubu has made that statement that such should be tagged as a terror group, do you think it's just a mere rhetoric, just to make sure that certain persons within the southern region are being appeased?
No, I don't think so.
Or what do you think?
So.
Do you see any action taking effect?
No, let us not even get it wrong. I don't think the government is currently in the process of designating any group a terrorist organization. What I understand is that I think the chairman of Mietiala is on trial, maybe for terrorism-related offense. It's an allegation, because you don't have right to indict anyone until court makes a pronouncement. But I think the government is doing the right thing, because if you accuse someone and you are putting him on trial, you are not saying the person have done that thing until the court makes a pronouncement. And I think there have been so much accusation against such persons that the government need to bring them to answer some questions. So I think the government is doing the right thing.
So one of those that have just been invited to answer questions, I'm talking about Gumi, has come out to say that, well, he's been invited is to give the security agencies advisory, counsel as regards how to deal with insurgency. Do you think that is the case?
We are not privy to what was discussed. According to information in the public domain, that they had conversation. But what I can understand is, if government has sufficient evidence against any individual, I encourage government to put the person on trial.
So what do you think could be the likelihood of future event, looking at it from the angle of, yes, these guys should be prescribed as a terror group? What are we likely to see, especially from the body language of the president and, of course, from our military?
The body language of this current president shows that he wants to fight insurgency. That is the truth. But for the first time, we're even seeing that the Sheikh Gumi of a person you just mentioned was invited by the government to give explanation on some issues. For the first time, we saw that what looked like the almighty Mietiala chairman was invited by DSS, and as we speak, he's having his day in court. He's going to have his day in court. So I think the government, if you ask me, the body language of this government show that they want to deal with that monster of insurgency.
Now, looking at it from the angle of how the military has recently, recorded, some level of damage and, of course, losses, looking at it from a human standpoint, the lives that have been lost just recently, do you think that morale is still there to be able to wage this war against these non-state actors?
It's quite unfortunate, but there's always a way to rekindle such morale, because there is already new leadership, and as we speak, all the service chiefs, we have new service chiefs.
Yes.
And I think for now, there's no cause for alarm to start thinking that their morals have been dampened.
Why do you think so?
Because except for some issues like the one that happened in Delta State. In the Northeast, we are not hearing the issue of ambushing of Nigerian military personnel the way we used to hear. So it shows that perhaps they are changing strategy and it's paying off.
Do you think that this militant group I'm talking about, Amagbian Force, who have been linked to the killings of these military men, do you think that he's been given some level of cover, especially looking at it from his locals, the traditional rulers and all of that? Do you think
I'm not privy to such information, so I may not be able to speak extensively on that. I'm not privy to
What do you think the army needs to do now to move into those territories, to make sure that they comb every nook and cranny to make sure that this guy is brought to book, considering the image he's having on the Nigerian army, both locally and, of course, outside the shores of this country?
What the military need to do is to possess monopoly of coercive power.
How do they do that?
By acquiring, by fighting through technology, getting more military hardware. But even as they do all this, I think they should remember that there is rule of engagement. Because we understand that in Nigeria, both locally and internationally, collective punishment is a serious offense. And if there in any way there is issue that has to do maybe in the course of trying to get at the perpetrators of those dastard acts, innocent citizens are made to suffer, I don't think it speaks well of professionalism when it comes to our military. So I think where the military goes about getting at those corporates, I think it's incumbent of them to play by the rule. When I mean play by the rule of engagement, so that innocent citizens will be protected.
Why I'm saying this is because you don't expect the army to feel happy that one of theirs...
It's not just the army. Personally, I'm not happy.
Good. So why I'm saying this because we need to understand that a strong message needs to be sent out there. Boko Haram and other, insurgent groups are also putting their ears on the ground to see if we'll ever get to the end of this. And if that is not achieved, it means that they will be emboldened. Don't you think so?
No, you see, there are so many strategies to do this. We have the DSS. Even the police, you see, they have the surveillance unit. That is saddle responsibility of missing up with the society, that consent of the society, that for the purpose of investigation. The man who is coming for such information may not be the one that will do the arrest. So what I'm saying is the government should do everything within the ambit of the law in getting the culprits and bring them to justice.
So these men who have just fallen, our fallen soldiers, will be laid to rest in Abuja. What do you think needs to be done to make sure that the family, because obviously it has always been the case, as some have said, I don't know how true it is, that the moment, such breadwinners who are, in the military falls, then they are being evicted from the barracks. What do you think needs to be done to these families, especially considering that the fact that their loved one died in the line of battle?
First of all, I think our constitution, our laws already have provision for compensation when things like this happen. It's quite unfortunate. There is no amount of money, compensation that is incommensurate with the loss we have seen. But however, I think the government should not delay in allowing them to get all the due benefits. And if need be, Mr. President should even give more benefit to the families of those families that suffer this casualty, because we understand that they would have left loved ones behind with a lot of responsibility and bills to pay. So the government should ensure that the people they leave behind will not suffer their absence.
Talking about the rules of engagement once again, do you think the army did right by invading the home of one of the Ijaw leaders? I'm talking about Edwin Clark, who mentioned that his home and his privacy has been, invaded, so to speak.
I'm not aware that the home of Edwin Clark have been.
It was on the papers.
I'm not aware.
So how about the homes of other people who are also reacting that they are no longer safe, considering the fact that the army now is making sure that they get this guy, arrested by searching homes and villages and towns within that area to make sure that they spot it? Do you think they are going well within their rights, considering
I've said it before, but
engagement?
I've said it before, but for the purpose of emphasis, let me repeat it.
All right.
that the military should not leave any stone unturned in getting the culprits. But while they do it, they should remember that collective punishment is a serious offense, both locally and internationally, and that they should strive to protect innocent citizens in those localities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew Oluko, for sharing your time with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be going for a short break now, and when we return, we'll bring you more on this story. Thank you.